Is it? Oh, wow. Okay. We are on. Hello, I am Taylor Hain. I am XYPN's VP of Sapphire, but I have been with XYPN for going on almost 8 years. I joke I have had almost every job at this company, and I used to run our overall membership. So I'm deeply familiar with what we offer kind of in any path to XYPN membership. So that's why I am today's host. Today we're going to talk about choose your path to independence, kind of the different paths we offer at XYPN if you are anticipating making that leap. Today we have a few panelists to talk through their experiences. So we have Erin O'Brien, she is with Purposeful Money. We have Joel Schunard, he's with Sharp Edge Financial, and we have Chris Arnold, who's with Refresh Wealth. So before diving in, I'm going to just give you kind of a quick overview of what those paths, what those membership options are, so we can ground ourselves before jumping in. First, we have Emerald. This is what you have probably known XYPN for. This is what we launched with, what most advisors in the network are. This is where you're building your own RIA. You're getting registered at either the state or SEC level, depending on your amount of assets. And this is really where you get full control. You are your CCO, you're making the decisions kind of at every level of your firm, your tech stack, your setup, exactly how your client service works. All of that is for you. Of course, you need to register at the state or SEC level. The XYPN team can help with that. That is one of our additional services. So that's not something you necessarily need to do on your own. Pricing there is $520 a month. So you get with that community, education, compliance resources, technology, and then there's lots of add-ons that you can add if you need them. So compliance, bookkeeping, things like that are all available additionally. Sapphire is our affiliate model. We rolled out full access to it, officially launched it in October of last year at this conference. So because of the timing, this is a much newer model. At this point, we have about 28 advisors affiliated with us, and we have about $500 million under management with Sapphire. And this model is really where you join our RIA. So this model is where a lot of firms who don't want to manage absolutely everything, want more support with investment management, back office support, or compliance, that is where these advisors come. The pricing there is $1,500 a month and then 20% of revenue. With that, as I mentioned, compliance, full tech stack, you're not making decisions between eMoney or Right Capital, just all included. E&O insurance, and then investment management and TAMP support is all included. And then if you are somewhere where you have existing client relationships, we have a dedicated onboarding and transition team to make that as simple as possible. So with that, we're now going to turn to our panelists to talk about some real experiences. Back in the day, I used to talk to every advisor who was joining membership for a while. I talked to every advisor who's thinking about joining Sapphire, and almost all of them want to hear from members. So that is the experience today, that you get to hear from some real members. So first, if each of you could just start off with kind of a 30-second intro of your firm, maybe what type of clients you serve, just to get us started. Chris, if you want to kick us off.
Hello, everyone. So I'm Chris Arnold, founder of Refresh Wealth. I launched in January of this year, so pretty fresh. I've been in the industry for about 10 years, and the niche that I target with my firm is startup employees at pre-IPO companies with stock options. And I primarily serve folks virtually throughout the country.
Hi, everyone. My name is Joel Schunard. I'm the founder of Sharp Edge Financial. I'm in Dallas and serving clients all over the country. My niche is working with millennial Gen Z attorneys. My wife is one, so it's kind of a natural niche to go into. And I am on the Emerald side, so I launched a year ago. So I'll be talking about that in a little bit.
Hi, my name is Erin O'Brien. My company is Purposeful Money. I've been in business since 2007, so it's been a while. And, I'll explain about that later. I'm in Naples, Florida, and have clients around the country, especially back in Pennsylvania, where I just moved from. I work, my niche is women over 55 who are in what I call the season of you. I guess
Yeah, beautiful. And Chris launched his firm with Sapphire. As Joel said, he launched his firm with the Emerald model. And Erin of course, launched our firm before XYPN was founded and was a member of our Emerald membership for a long time and moved over to Sapphire this year. So you kind of get a range of experiences. I think to kick us off, of course, with this session, we're talking about choosing your path to independence before picking any type of membership with XYPN. Usually the first step is, do I want to go independent and why? So I'm hoping we can talk about that a little bit. Maybe Joel first, kind of what drew you to independence in the first place and why did you end up picking this path versus others?
Yeah. So right from the get-go, when I got into this industry 6 years ago, I was kind of thrown in the fire at a broker-dealer insurance company, try to survive. And they tell you you're your own business owner, you run your own practice. Well, I later found out when I left that that's actually not totally true. But I've always had this in my mind that I was a business owner, I was independent. Um, and so how I got to XYPN, and it was actually from a consultant at my previous firm who told me about Michael Kitsis, who, again, they did a pretty good job at keeping us inside the four walls of their company. I didn't know who he was. That's how ignorant I was. And this was 3-4 years ago. Well, started learning more about who he was, started listening to his podcast, stumbled upon XYPN's podcast. And this was when Maddie was still running it. And I probably listened to like 100 episodes in like a month. And I'm like, this is what I need to do. This is where I feel like I'm going to belong. And for being here at XYPN for the first time, this is where I belong. I've been to other, previous conferences for the company, and I did not feel like I belong there. So I feel like I'm at home here with my people. So, yeah, it's been great. I launched a year ago and haven't looked back.
Amazing. I hear from a lot of advisors launching that they have binged the podcast right before making the decision, so you're not alone. Chris, can you talk to us kind of about what drew you to independence as a whole and how you found XYPN?
Yeah. So my background, so I got my start in the independent space at a large like enterprise RIA out of St. Louis. I was there for about 5.5 years. Incredible experience for learning about financial planning. So did not have a CFP designation coming out of school. So I got to sit for the CFP exam, but also sit in on client meetings and just absorb like the soft skills and the intangibles in addition to like learning the technical side. That firm primarily worked with like higher net worth business owners, executives, primarily in the St. Louis area. And I learned a lot there. While I was there, they also did a partnership with a financial wellness technology company. So I got a chance to help like inform the build out of that platform. And then once they were live, they sold to large enterprise tech. So Salesforce and Atlassian were some of the customers. And so employees would have this benefit to the platform. And they also got to schedule a call with a CFP. And I was one of the CFPs that was taking those calls. And that was an experience to work with some younger clients that also had equity comp. And I really just liked being able, those conversations, I just felt like I was really having an impact on the lives of those folks at a pivotal moment. And I also saw the power that equity comp could have to change the trajectory of their life. I saw it if company stock price did well, they could really unlock new opportunities. And if the stock did not go as they hoped, it could really set people back. And there was a lot of like tax surprises as well. So I wanted to work with younger folks. I ended up leaving the enterprise firm to help launch an advisory business inside of a firm. That was a startup. Was there for 3 years and started working with more private employees. And then decided in January to make my launch. And so I think the path to independence really, I always wanted to be a business owner. I wanted to be able to serve clients in the way that I felt was best to really meet them where they're at. So many of my clients, like they're not, multi-million-dollar clients today. They may have the potential, but really they're just hitting an inflection point in life. And so wanted to be able to serve them well. And the reason I chose to go with Sapphire, as I mentioned, work with a lot of tech folks. So I'm in St. Louis, Missouri. None of my clients today are in the state of Missouri. So I was actually looking to go down the Emerald path and then realized the state level registration was a pretty big barrier. I would have to get registered in my home state. And then, with who I serve, I thought it wouldn't be too far before California or Texas or, Washington State. And I know Washington State can be a pretty tough one. So being able to have the XY team that had, an SEC registered RIA, also had the compliance support. I'd been an advisor. I knew a lot about being an advisor, but I didn't know what I didn't know about, the compliance side or the operations. And I was never the person placing the trades. So to be able to have some of the other things so that I could focus on, the things that I know that I think I do well and the things that I enjoy doing, those are probably the big two factors that led me to Sapphire.
Okay, thank you. And Aaron, your decision to kind of pursue independence with your own firm, can you talk us through that at this point, almost 20 years ago?
Sure. I did my CFP coursework, and then I went and got a job at a broker-dealer insurance company as well with my uncle, and I had no idea what I was getting into. I thought I was going to do planning, but they handed me a book and said, write down everybody you know and then go try to sell them life insurance. And I'm like, this is not for me. So I stayed there. I worked as his assistant. I did all kinds of research, and I discovered NAPFA and realized that's what I wanted to do. So I stayed there till I got my 3 years of CFP experience and could get planning experience, got my CFP. And then I wanted to go do fee-only planning, and there was nobody within 60 miles of where I lived. So I just felt like that's what I needed to do. If I'm going to work, I needed to open my own firm. So, and at the time, really, I had no idea what I was getting into as far as building a business, and I just wanted to be a planner.
And Aaron, back to you. So you joined XYPN at a time when we only had our Emerald membership. What made you shift from Emerald to Sapphire? Because I know that transition has taken place this year. Kind of what prompted it for you?
I was at the point where I was really overwhelmed with work. I had 90 clients, and I was ready just to quit. I was burnt out, and I just, I'm just going to start all over and get a job somewhere. And well, that's not really smart. I had just built business for all this time. So I looked at other alternatives. The other part of it was not just the workload, but I had a bad car accident last year, kind of almost hit by the proverbial bus, but it was an SUV. So it really brought home that I needed to have backup. I needed to have some place for my clients to go if something actually did happen to me. So I looked at different alternatives. I looked at becoming an employee someplace else. I looked at bringing on an advisor, doing a partnership. I looked at just TAMPs and other corporate RAs, and I liked Sapphire because I could be independent, but still own my firm. But I know the quality of XYPN and Michael and all that, and I had no doubt about the ethics, and I could speak to my clients and say this is an ethical organization. And I knew I needed to make changes in my model and everything I was doing. I collected a lot of bad habits over the years, I would say, and that I could not take on the job of sorting all that out myself. But Joe did. Joe and Andrew. So they've really gotten me in a much better place. And I couldn't even, the thought of trying to do that on my own was just overwhelming. So I needed help.
Great, thank you. I think, Joel, I might start with you with this question. So thinking about compliance specifically, but kind of all of the burdens of firm ownership is what holds some people back from starting with XYPN as a whole. So can you talk kind of about what your day-to-day looks like? Like, how much time are you spending on compliance on these tasks that sometimes people may think take up most of their day-to-day?
Yeah, that's, in my opinion, a myth. So I have my compliance tasks that pop up once a quarter, and I would say at most 3 hours a quarter I'm going to spend on what those tasks are for that quarter. Now, there are other things that happen monthly, like billing and reviewing client accounts, make sure the fees are, well calculated, all that kind of stuff that I never had to do or that you wouldn't have to do under a corporate RIA. But maybe it accounts to like 5 or 6 hours a quarter. To me, that was a good trade-off to be fully independent, to own my firm. And this is not like a knock on Sapphire at all, but just
give your experience for sure.
Have complete independence on my clients, my firm, the way I want to run it, everything. And I think if you approach it from a cautious standpoint, like full disclosure, I actually knew I had a compliance consultant that I had a relationship with before I launched. So I actually didn't use XY's compliance team. But every time there's something that I am like, I always email her first. And she gives me her answer. And I mean, usually it's pretty clear. Usually my intuition is right. But that's the only thing is before I basically have to not fight compliance, but just at least like, hey, how does it? But now it's like I'm responsible for those decisions, and it kind of shifts your mindset a little bit, being more cautious. So yes.
Do you mind giving like a real example of that situation?
Yes. Okay. So are you familiar with Pontera? Okay, Pontera is and I don't know, am I allowed to talk about this? Okay, I didn't know if they were like a vendor or something, but Pontera is a tool where you can manage held away assets. So like if your client has a 401k and they want you to manage it, well, you still only have access to the funds there. Well, a client of mine came to me last week and he said, "Hey Joel, I want you to manage my 401k," because he has two W-2 jobs, so he actually has two 401ks, and that one he's not contributing to, and it's just sitting there. And he's like, "Hey, I want you to manage it because I manage his other assets." And I said, "Well, you're still working there. We can't do an in-service rollover." And then I was like, "Well, I thought of Pontera." So, but then I was like, "Okay, well, from a compliance standpoint, what does that look like?" So I emailed her. And she gave me like 4 bullet points as to what are the pros and cons and what are the risks. And right now, apparently, a bunch of states are looking at this because there's maybe some issues about sharing passwords with clients and stuff like that. So basically, my point is there's always you always have to kind of think about it that way. Like, am I allowed to say this? If it's not in my ADV, or am I allowed to add this service if it's not in my, it's those types of decisions that I never really had to think about before, that now I have this kind of mindset of, all right, I'm the CCO here. I have to think about those things. But if you surround yourself with good people, which the XY team is, again, has nothing to do with it, it's just I had a prior relationship with her. If you surround yourself with good people, they, just ask questions and it'll guide you to the right decision.
Can you tell us, are you state registered or SEC?
State, yeah.
And you work with clients all over the country?
Well, I can right now. Right now, I have 35 clients and 33 of them in Texas.
Does that add to your compliance complexity?
Not right now because I'm still under the de minimis rules in all the states that I'm not. So it has not. Yeah, I have a spreadsheet. So I built a workflow in my CRM that every time I have a new client, I have to go update that spreadsheet, and I have a live count of how many clients. But the rule is, and again, that's something I had to ask her because I didn't know the nuance. It's like a 12-month rolling period, and I'm not giving compliance advice by any mean, but that's my understanding of it. So I have a spreadsheet to track that. So again, it's like something I never had to think about, but I built a spreadsheet. I built a workflow, and now it takes me 12 seconds to do it. And now if I see that I'm above those numbers, I reach out to my compliance officer or consultant, and then, all right, what's the next step? Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, Chris, I think I'm going to turn this to you. Same question, but what does your day-to-day look like in terms of compliance and thinking in that way? I think something that holds some advisors back from maybe pursuing a corporate RA affiliation model, that type of structure, is thinking that everything I say has to be reviewed by compliance before I send it out, and that's going to be a super onerous process. So what has that been like for you?
Yeah, so I would say I don't spend much time thinking about compliance. I mean, operating of doing the right thing by clients, but in terms of needing, I don't have like the spreadsheets with tasks. So Buddy is the chief compliance officer with XY Invest, and so he's been a great resource anytime I have questions. So one example is I was offered a consulting or advisory opportunity with a wealth tech software company that I was granted equity as well as just a stipend. And I just asked him, I was like, hey, there's nothing, I'm not, pitching this to clients, but I'm just sharing feedback with the team to help them develop this. Do I need to add it as an outside business interest? And he was able to follow up with me and just kind of give, hey, similar to Joel, like, here's the things to think of. Like, he asked a few follow-up questions. Here's the risk. And like was just able to provide a pretty quick turnaround and like counsel me through that process. And again, that was the first time for me. Like I've never done any outside like consulting. Outside of that, I would say one of the primary ways that I have built my business and generated prospects has been through social media, through posting on LinkedIn. And so like have XY archive, but there's not a pre-approval like process that I have to submit post to Buddy, or I think I've definitely have some like disclaimers that I've asked him about, especially if there's anything that's like investment or like tax related. Like definitely don't want to be misleading in any way, but in terms of like I don't feel that there's a big brother that's like looking over all my posts. I think it's more of a resource there to help support advisors so that they can build the business. And again, the areas that they may not have as much background in, or don't care to be spending quite as much time, they will help that. And one of the things that is upcoming in Q4 is going to be just preparing us to have like kind of more documented process, and just make sure that if there was an audit, that like we just have the processes and the kind of things documented. So again, he's just been very helpful, and even kind of given us a guide of, hey, these are the things to be thinking about before like we sync, for kind of that pre-meeting, to kind of walk through.
And thanks for jumping in with questions. This is an intimate group. If anybody has a question, feel free to ask it, or just raise your hand and we can get to it. Aaron, for you, in terms of compliance, but maybe just tasks in general, maybe what has been the biggest change in your day-to-day from switching to kind of the Emerald fully independent RIA model to underneath Sapphire?
To me, it's just having a team and having, before a client would call me and want a distribution, I have to go and look to see, what fund I wanted to sell out of. And then I had to do up the whole process and, make sure it all went out. And now I make a task in Wealthbox or on the support site now. And the team sends in the order. Andrew's team makes a trade for me. They send it all out and they just tell me it's done. And I don't have to think about it. It's not on my mind like through the whole several-day process of it getting out. And I have I would say in September, the first couple weeks in September, I probably had 10 or 15 clients want money just, like they might have normal distributions, but these were just extra things. It was like a run on the bank. And I just thought, thank God I can just go. And I had never seen anything like that before from my clients. I don't know what was going on, but it was just really nice to not have to worry about that. And now, like if the phone rings and I have a client who just wants to be chatty and talk about her kids for, a half hour, I can just enjoy the phone call instead of like going, I have so many things I have to do. It's nice. And it's such a relief to not be thinking about that stuff all the time.
Question.
Yes, I have a question. Well, for anyone in regards to Sapphire, and Aaron brought up some good points around these questions. Custodian, is there a preferred custodian, or do like all three of you use different custodians?
It's a great question. Right now, Sapphire only works with Schwab. Joel, I don't know who you work with. He works with Schwab. Joel could work with any custodian that he wants. At this point, we are restricted to Schwab. We plan on becoming multi-custodial, but that is one of the trade-offs if you had a lot of money at a different custodian.
And then second question, maybe for Aaron, the management of the portfolio. So you send out the task, hey, this client needs $5,000. Who's managing the money?
XY Invest is managing it.
And then, Taylor, different models?
Yes. Sorry, what's the question? Just like, what are the model options?
No, I don't need to know all the models.
Yeah.
Like with this menu, so you have this menu of models.
Mm-hmm.
In Sapphire, is that the only way to have the money managed?
So our approach, and the man right in front of you is our director of investment services, so you can talk with him later. But on our platform, there are some restrictions. You are not going to be the one going into iRebal and doing things yourself, right? Our team is doing it. We're placing the trades, and I might pass it off to Joel to kind of talk about your approach to some of these things after. But what we do is we have either in-house models that our team builds and manages that you can have your clients opt into, range of passive, semi-active, active. We also have some models available through Orion's communities feature. So we have lots of models. We've rolled out basically all the BlackRock models you can opt clients into. And then we can also work with you and our portfolio management team to build custom models for your clients, depending on if there is a strategy that is not reflected in any of those above options or a really unique client situation. So one of those kind of three approaches is how we manage the assets. Yep. Yep. And Joel, kind of what is your approach? How do you approach managing client assets without a TAMP behind you?
So my previous firm used Envestnet as their TAMP. So I came from a TAMP world, and so when I launched, I heard of this company called 55IP, which is owned by JP Morgan, and they basically are TAMPs. And I used BlackRock models on my old firm, and because they have an agreement with BlackRock, Fidelity, and JP Morgan, 55IP, basically those models are subsidized. So they don't charge a fee. So I don't have to eat the fee, or I don't have to pass it on to my clients. And I basically get TAMP services like tax overlay and tax transition and rebalancing and invest cash. So that's what I use. I have a few on iRebal because there's a $10,000 minimum for to use 55IP. But yeah, that's the other thing that surprised me is how, and I don't want to use the word easy because like we're talking about people's retirement funds, but like how simple managing the portfolios is. Like it's a very small amount of my time. It's kind of like similar to compliance, right? Like guys, most of my time, 80% is spent on marketing, thanks to Katie in the back, and client, either prep or meetings. That's it. Like the rest is maybe a little bit of back office admin stuff, compliance, and investment management, stuff like that. But it's very small percentage compared to the rest of the stuff.
Yeah, question.
Yeah, I would love to hear the difference in like audit.
Yeah. Joel, have you been audited yet? Okay, so I can potentially answer this, and then, did you ever get audited in your firm? Okay, Erin will also chime in. So on the Sapphire side, because we are the compliance officer and run the compliance program, we as the RIA would get audited. So you as the individual IAR would not go through an audit. That being said, there may be parts of that audit where we need more information from you or more documents. So we might reach out and our compliance team may request some information, but there would not be a regulator coming to your house, reaching out to you via email, going back and forth. So that for some advisors is a very big benefit of joining Sapphire, is not having that process and threat. I will also say, again, given my background, I oversaw our compliance team for years on the Emerald side. I helped build out our archiving platform that helps advisors through audits. For a lot of state registered audits, this is not as onerous of a process as everyone thinks it is. The caveat is sometimes it is, right? Sometimes we hear of advisors going back and forth 4 months or mentioning Washington State, like some states are just more restrictive than others. So not every audit is as bad as you may build it up in your head to be, but it is something that you have to be really mindful of as you're operating your firm. And I'm going to turn it over to Erin to maybe talk about your audit experience, and she's already laughing, so I'm imagining it's maybe not great, but we'll see.
It was great for me, but it was probably the strangest audit ever. The auditor came in. I had to give him a thumb drive with, he just wanted client files, like the whole folder, for I think maybe 20 clients. But he came in and he looked at our compliance manual. He said, "Why do you have that? You don't need that. That was a lot of work you didn't need to do." I said, "Okay." And then he told me about his divorce and where he was staying up the road and invited me over for a drink. This is a state. And I never heard from him again. And that was my one audit all that time. It was just very strange. And then I'm like, I'm gonna get a real audit someday. So that was my audit experience.
I have never heard of an audit experience like that, so I've now heard something new. But great question. Thank you. We are definitely all about transparency as well. So maybe Chris, if you could kick us off, I was going to ask about what trade-offs you think you experience under the Sapphire model versus the kind of Emerald full independence path.
Yeah, so I would say, I mean, one of the things you all may have observed is just that it's a higher like fee, like you're giving 20%, so 1,500 a month is like, it's opposed to 520 and then 20% of revenue. I think in the early days of like, advisor's practice, like it does scale nicely. But if you do grow, like that 20% continues to grow and it can add up quickly. So I think that is just like one, trade-off. I would say like, a lot of advisors, solo advisors, I've heard their first hire is like an admin person. I think with Sapphire, like you don't necessarily need to do that. I think one of the things that I think could be a blocker for a lot of advisors is like the delegation and like they need to kind of dish stuff off their plate. So while I'm not doing the trading, I'm not doing the compliance, like I am still the one that is communicating with clients. So like client reaches out to say, hey, like got money in my bank account to do the backdoor Roth. I'm the one that's like putting that task in Wealthbox or putting it on the Sapphire platform, and then the team takes care of it. But I guess like there isn't a CSA that I could train the clients to say, hey, reach out to my customer service associate. Like I still am involved in that process. So it's not a significant amount of time, but it is something like I had a couple clients that reached out like, hey, I need money to, buy a vehicle. I have money to do the backdoor Roth IRAs. And I was like setting those cases in Wealthbox like over a coffee break this morning. So like that is just like one thing. Trying to think of other things. I think it has been, yeah, go ahead.
Can you just say more so like when a client is confused about something on their paperwork? And
Yeah.
I'm not an expert on paperwork. I have to ask
Like a statement or an
an
application?
application, anything that comes from my client service team. I delegate to them. So are you saying you now have to be an expert still with Sapphire or no?
So you don't have to. So I would say the operations team is the primary, like they're interacting with Schwab. So if there's a NIGO or if there is, an error with like the bank, I think, so I work with a lot of tech professionals that have like these neobanks, like a Chime that like, or some other companies that are like a tech platform that are not actually a bank, that the bank is held somewhere else. And so when you're setting up a money link, like that bank account, like you need a routing number with Schwab and like it's really tricky to find it. So like I do sometimes have to like help the client like figure out like how the heck do you get a routing number. But I would say with Schwab interaction, that is mostly the XY team that is kind of handling that. And then if there is something that it gets tripped up, then like they'll communicate with me. And then, if we need additional information, I can share that with the client. But I would say like, I'm the primary one communicating with the client, but they're the ones handling pretty much everything with Schwab.
And I can maybe add something to this because it's a good thing to note because like I have spent a decent amount in Schwab like opening SEP IRAs because they don't have a digital workflow for that. It's still in DocuSign. Now I know Altruist is maybe a little bit more advanced on that side, and if you're at it, maybe that's a moot point. But that's something that if you have a back office team that handles that, then it's less time that you have to spend doing it. Now, these are isolated cases for my firm. I primarily work within like Roth, backdoor Roth, and brokerage accounts. So like these are kind of one-off things. So it wasn't a big deal for me, but it did take me like a couple hours first of all to figure out where it was, and second to like make sure. And then I called Schwab, make sure it's accurate because I didn't want an NIGO. And so that is a good point that I have to take on that maybe somebody on Sapphire wouldn't.
Okay. From your experience, what kind of advisor, maybe somebody in the audience, if they're in a particular situation or they think about their practice for the future a different way, who would be best for kind of the Emerald model or the Sapphire model for your experience? Maybe Joel, who do you think would be a good fit for Emerald?
I think if you're in the industry, you probably heard of the term, DIYer and delegator, and obviously we want to work with the delegators, but I kind of see it similarly for this decision, because again, if you're going to go Emerald, you kind of have to go learn these things unless you have a team that can literally go learn it for you. I didn't, so I had to go learn the Schwab platform. I had to learn the compliance. I had to learn the trading and all that kind of stuff. So that's more DIY. And frankly, that's kind of my personality a little bit. Something's wrong at the house, I try to fix it first, unless it's electric, and I don't touch it. Versus, you could maybe delegate that by going Sapphire. So I think that's maybe a good mindset to take if you know yourself well. Yeah.
Great. Chris, what about you? What do you think, if you're anticipating this jump, who would be a good fit for Sapphire in your view?
Yeah, I think one factor is just like how quickly you think you might grow. I think if you anticipate that you have like a pipeline of like prospective clients that you could onboard, then it is nice to have a team that can help you with the operational side of that. Also, it scales nicely, especially in the early days, because for me to even hire a fractional like help, when I'm $10,000, $20,000 of revenue, like that's a big cut. Whereas like it is easier to have the percentage there. So I think if you are someone that has the potential to grow quickly, I think having the additional support to not, even Joel said, not spending a lot of time on compliance, but like you got someone that could, deal with Schwab. You have someone that could like help you get set up with like, right capital and Holista plan and, your tech stack. So I think that's a help. I think just also thinking through kind of what is your vision in terms of team structure. Do you want to stay solo? I think you probably have more capacity to stay solo longer with Sapphire if your vision is to bring on an associate advisor or to grow the team. I think it can be done with Sapphire. To my knowledge, I don't know if any Sapphire members have like multiple advisors on their team. There may be. I don't know yet, but that's just like something to think through. But I would say just like the growth factor has been one thing that I think Sapphire provides a nice path that you would not have to go through the vetting process, even if it is fractional, just like, well, is this person like knowledgeable with like the Schwab workflows, and can they really take things off my plate, especially in those early days when just as a business owner, like you're just trying to figure it out. I think it is really nice to have a team that is experienced and they know kind of what to expect, and they also know what other advisors have been through kind of in your spot as you're launching.
And Aaron, since you've been on both sides, who do you think would be maybe a good fit for either?
I think Joel had a really good comparison with the DIY and the delegators. I think if I could do it over, I would have charged more and done Sapphire. I did not charge. I lived in an area where they thought fee only. Literally, someone said to me, "Oh, that's free only." I'm like, no, no. So it was a really strange place. It was the Poconos, Pennsylvania, where people brag about how bad they have it. So I don't know that I could have charged that much to cover the fee in the beginning. But looking back, I would have loved to have done it this way, to be able to do it through Sapphire, not have to learn everything myself. And I am generally a DIYer, but having a track to run on, I'm just going back to thinking about when I started out, just to know how to do business would have been a big help.
I wanted to add something about the difference. If you know, like Chris, that you're going to have multiple clients in multiple different states already, like from the get-go, that might be a big deal. That the registration is hard enough in one state to have to do it in multiple states early on. It costs money. I personally, all my clients were already in Texas, so it was easy. I just had to do one state, and then gradually, like as my firm grows, then maybe I'll do a couple states here and there. But if you already have clients all over the country, the SEC registration obviously makes it a lot easier.
Okay, I think something you mentioned, Aaron, is spurring this question for me, but I think I hear a lot from advisors who are worrying about certain things, really nervous about certain things when they're just jumping into owning their own firm, whatever path that is. What's one thing you would have told yourself at the beginning, I'm going to ask this to everybody, that you wish you hadn't worried about as much?
if the phone was ever going to ring again. I just remember getting to a point where finally I wasn't worried if the phone was, like you have your prospects. And I did a lot of project planning. And so I was always worried, well, what if nobody ever calls me again? What if I never get another client? And you get to a point where you just know. And I could tell, like, the rhythm of the time of year, like, okay, I'm going to get more clients to call me now or prospects. And it was nice to get to that point. I would have worried a lot less, and I would have told myself it was going to take a whole lot longer than I thought it was going to. So my expectations were lower, I think, because I was like, what am I doing wrong? And it just takes time, and I just would have not worried about that so much.
Okay, Joel, what about you?
I would have probably just trusted that my clients would follow me more. I mean, I was pretty confident, but there's always the doubt that they would, and they pretty much all did. I think there was one client who had been trying to reach even at the old firm for 2 years and would never respond. So I kind of knew she wasn't going to come, but that was it. Everybody else came, and so now I wouldn't have done it sooner because I was going through the CFP program and they were paying for it. But yeah, that's, I think, my response.
Okay, and Chris?
I would say that being a solo advisor is not as lonely as you may think it is. I think it can be, but I think there are ways, whether it's through the XYPN community, whether it's just surrounding, like getting involved in a mastermind. I think XY has some like groups for like advisors that are launching like subsequently, whether that's in a different state or, depending upon whether it's the niche you serve, or it could just be, women advisors or like faith-based advisors, whatever that is. But I think that there is a way to be supported as you launch in the journey. Like, there are some hard days, but there also, it's incredibly rewarding. And I think that, like, I don't regret it, even though there has been some real hard days. But you don't have to go on the journey alone, and like there are people there to celebrate like the wins and the highs with you, and to help you kind of get through that. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have staff or a full-time employee, but just being able to surround yourself with other advisors, just a support system. So it's not as lonely as some may say.
That's beautiful. Okay, this is going to be our last question. Then I'm going to open it up for any questions we have in the audience. What is one piece of advice you all would give to someone in the audience who is just truly on the fence about joining XYPN at all, or maybe in between these two different paths? And Joel, if you want to start.
Yeah, I saw that one on your email, and I was still struggling to answer it because there's more than one.
You can do more than one if you want. We can cheat.
Yeah. I mean, it's really, I think, between Emerald and Sapphire, maybe ask yourself, like, what are you trying to build? And for me, my goal with building my firm was to build something that had enterprise value. Now, I don't want you guys to confuse this with building an enterprise because I'm building a lifestyle practice. I work 30, 35 hours a week. But I wanted to build something that had value and that was mine, that had a material value to it. Now, that's not the case yet. I'm only 1 year in, so I don't know. But like, if I'm going to pour 25 years of my life into this, I want to have something in return. And that was kind of and granted, I didn't have the option for Sapphire, but I'm still, to this day, I think that's where I belong because of that. I'm building something that is, mine, that I can one day sell for what it's worth. And regarding joining XY and like period, I mean, there's a lot of reasons why I think, but again, it goes back to kind of what you want. Some people are fine being employees of RIAs, and that's where they feel like they're most comfortable. But the nice thing about this space that we live in, regardless if it's Sapphire or Emerald, is you can build whatever you want. Like, I don't want to work 80 hours a week. My kids are in sports and activities, and I want to be there for that phase of their life, and I can make a good living out of it. So it's just a matter of what you want, and you can do this here. You can build it the way you want. So.
Thank you. Chris, what about you? What's one piece of advice for someone considering making this jump in the audience?
Yeah, I would echo what Joel's saying of just, I think one of the beautiful things, this is my first time at XYPN Live, and you can make it whatever you want to be. Like there are advisors that are thriving that do hourly, that some that do project-based, that some that do have multiple employees, in so many niches that like I would have never even thought of. And so I think that like there isn't a like a right or wrong way to do this. Like you can really make your business the way that you want it to be. And I think that, you know, the path to independence, like while there are some hard days, I think that just having like XYPN that has like relationships with Schwab, or that they have relationships with Holistoplan and all the financial planning software is like, I think it could be really difficult. Like there's just so many decisions to make as you're launching, and then just new, you know, territory that you're kind of coming into. And so I think the big thing with like custodial platforms is like, if you're just launching and like you don't have a support system like an XYPN, like the type of service and attention that you would get probably is going to be, you know, pretty poor. But if you can be affiliated with XYPN, no matter if that's Sapphire or Emerald, I think that you're going to, you know, get some additional assistance, and just, you know, the learning curve and some of those initial hurdles. I think, you know, there still may be some, but there's not going to be quite as many as going at it alone or going at it, you know, with some of the other routes. But yeah, I think just seeing the different ways that advisors can thrive in this business is pretty special.
Okay, and Erin, maybe finish this off. What's one piece of advice from you?
I would say don't go it alone. Join a network like this. Go to study groups. Ask a lot of questions of advisors that have been there before, and don't try to reinvent the wheel. I think save yourself a lot of time, but really lean on other people to help you figure it out.
Okay, well, do we have any questions from the audience for any of our panelists about their experience? Yes. Comment.
Thank all three of you, Chris, Taylor, I'm sorry, Aaron, Joel, Chris. Did I get it right?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing all that. That's a lot of really good information, and you took your time and did your homework, and you guys thought into this, and I appreciate that very much. And Taylor, thanks for.
No, thank you. Thank you. That's so kind. Yes.
I just wanted to make a comment that I'm very inspired by the three of you and also XYPN, and the niches each of you have are really awesome, and it's been just great to listen to.
Hey. Well, thank you. Okay. Any other? Yes.
How did you think about how many years of financial runway to give yourselves, and how did that actually play out versus what you thought it would be?
It's a great question. Anyone want to take it?
Yeah, I think that's a personal question because everybody's finances, like personal finances, are different. But as somebody I think we all know in this room, Michael Kitces says, the biggest indicator of success in this industry is how long you've been doing it. So if you don't give yourself a long enough runway to succeed, it's your person. It's not like our industry, like unless you make a really bad mistake and all of your clients leave you, which just doesn't happen, it's your personal expenses that catch up to you. And that's the biggest thing to set up a firm is you have to have your personal expenses in check and enough runway. Otherwise, you may just pull the chute too early, and you might have this breakthrough that you just never knew about. So I don't think there's a specific number. It's just setting it up in a way. Maybe you have a spouse that works. That was the case for me. I'm not going to lie here. I have a spouse that had a good income, and obviously we took some things off the table to make sure that we had the right runway and everything. But it's a personal decision because of that. But yeah. I don't know what you just launched.
Yeah. So I would say the startup expenses itself were pretty minimal. I think all in, I would venture to say like it was definitely under 10 grand. I think maybe even like 5. I had a professionally website, like brand designer to help with the website. I mean, I did like the LLC registration. But other than that, I mean, I paid my membership fee for XY, but they helped, kind of get me up and running. So I would say minimal upfront expenses, like dollars going out. And then I would say I personally had 12 months of like personal runway. I thought that I could ramp up pretty quickly. I had started doing some like content posting, and people had reached out to me, and so I felt like that, just that was resonating. So I thought that I could have, some clients that would, join pretty early on, but I didn't want to be in a position where, if that wasn't the case, that I would have to kind of give up on the stream, or that I would, some of the initial clients that, took a chance on me, that I could not deliver because I just personally had not financially prepared. So like I felt 12 months, I'm married, don't have kids. So low overhead, and my wife, she's also a business owner, but she was a little further along. So, but I had 12 months of just cash runway. And I would just say, yeah, there's, be prepared that there may be unexpected things that come up. But I think for me, at least, I felt confident with, the runway that we had, that I wasn't forced to make business decisions in a way that I would not otherwise, because I felt the stress or the pressure of like needing to grow at a certain pace.
Do you want to add anything?
I was fortunate to have another income in the household, and I had the privilege to do this.
Yeah, double income, very, very common among advisors who are launching. We do have a resource with XYPN, a first-year budget template, and we kind of, you may have seen it, you're nodding your head like you probably have, but if anyone in the audience wants to see it, we kind of walk through 3 different budgets that you can think of about first-year expenses, which is a nice resource. Any other questions? All right. Well, we will wrap up. Thank you all for joining, and thank you, Aaron, Joel, and Chris. This was wonderful, as some of the audience already said, and thanked you for your contributions as comments, but this really was great. And we will be around if you have questions for us. Some of our XYPN team is here too if you have any questions you want to ask.